Welcome to Science Easy Tech channel. In this video, we are going to discuss about brain and behavior, nervous system in the unit biology of behavior, that is unit 2. This is my part 4 video. This video is useful for BSc nursing students, post basic BSc nursing students, students who are studying general psychology and B.Ed. Before moving on to the topic, if you are new to Science Easy Tech channel, just take a moment to subscribe our channel and also to press the notification bell icon in order to get connected with our latest updates. Let's see what are all the contents we are going to discuss in this video. Nervous system. Under nervous system we have central nervous system and peripheral nervous system, spinal cord, nature of behavior of an organism, integrated responses and its applications in nursing. So these are the topics what we are going to discuss in this in detail. Nervous system. So the nervous system is only controlling all our body functions and activities. So the activities of the human body is coordinated and controlled by the nervous system. So all your mental activity like thinking, reasoning, memory, intelligence, judgment, everything is controlled by your nervous system. So together with the endocrine system, the nervous system is responsible for maintaining homeostasis. What is homeostasis means? That is internal balance with that of the environment, internal environmental balance, homeostasis. So the nervous system along with endocrine system both are responsible for maintaining this internal balance, that is homeostasis. The human nervous system can be further divided into two parts, that is the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system means brain and spinal cord. What is the peripheral nervous system? So here you have two types again, somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Central nervous system comprises of brain and spinal cord. Then peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system comprises of what? Yes, it is comprises of somatic nervous system and autonomic nervous system. So here we can see the picture, that is the nervous system is divided into peripheral nervous system and central nervous system. So central nervous system consists of what? Brain and spinal cord, whereas peripheral nervous system consists of somatic division and autonomic division. Somatic nervous system is under voluntary control. Autonomic nervous system is under involuntary control. So peripheral nervous system, what it comprises of the nervous system other than brain and spinal cord, whatever comes now, that is called as peripheral nervous system, which is again further divided into somatic and autonomic. So somatic is under voluntary control, autonomic is involuntary control. So under this autonomic nervous system, again you have sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. What is the sympathetic nervous system and what is parasympathetic nervous system? So the sympathetic nervous system, no, here it acts to prepare the body in stressful situation. That is, whenever your body is going to have some stress, whether fight or flight, that time what nervous system is going to get activated is your sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system acts to calm the body after an emergency situation. That is, once the sympathetic nervous system has been stimulated, after that emergency situation resolves, the parasympathetic nervous system will be making the body to come back to its normal functioning. Okay, so it maintains a storage of energy sources. Sympathetic nervous system, emergency response, fight or flight response. Parasympathetic nervous system, after the emergency response, it makes the body to come back to its original normal functioning. So that is the function of parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, so the nervous system is divided into peripheral and central nervous system. Central nervous system is made up of brain and spinal cord. Peripheral nervous system is made up of somatic and autonomic system. Under autonomic nervous system, you have sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic is responsible for fight or flight response, emergency response, whereas parasympathetic is after that calming down or bringing back the body to normal functioning after an emergency response. Next, moving on to central nervous system in detail. I told central nervous system is made up of what? Brain and spinal cord. Okay, so here the sensory information, everything and based on the past experiences and current situations, everything will be interpreted by the brain and spinal cord. So brain is composed of what? Three main divisions, the forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. So under brain you have forebrain, midbrain and hindbrain. Let's see one by one in detail. So main divisions of the brain: forebrain, midbrain, hindbrain. Under forebrain you have thalamus, you have hypothalamus, you have limbic system and cerebrum. Thalamus, hypothalamus, limbic system and cerebrum. And midbrain you don't have any subdivisions, and in hindbrain again you have subdivisions, that is medulla, pons and cerebellum. Medulla, pons and cerebellum comprises of the hindbrain. Let's see forebrain. Forebrain, it has what? So many structures like thalamus, hypothalamus, limbic system and cerebrum. All sensory impulses, that is through the sense organs you are seeing and you are perceiving something. No? So all these impulses will be passing through the thalamus to the higher centers. Therefore, this thalamus will be acting as a relay station. So in sports also you have relay, no? So they will be passing from one person to other person, the relay stick. Similarly, here also the information is passed from the sensory impulses is passed to the brain by means of the thalamus. That's why it is called as a relay center or relay station. In addition, the thalamus have some control over the autonomic nervous system. So I have told, no, under autonomic again you have sympathetic, parasympathetic. So this thalamus is controlling the autonomic nervous system to some extent, and also plays an important role in the control of sleep and alertness. Sleep wake cycle is also controlled by what? Controlled by your thalamus. So next is important is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus, it lies below the thalamus. What is mean by hypo? Hypo means below. So hypothalamus means below the thalamus. It lies below the thalamus and it has many body processes. It controls many processes. It is a center for many body processes like eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature control, as well as sexual activities. Okay, sex control mechanism. So everything is controlled by what? Eating, drinking, sleeping, temperature control and sex are controlled by what? Hypothalamus. It also has control over the activities of the master gland. That is, what is the master gland? Pituitary gland. So pituitary gland and hypothalamus go hand in hand in secreting the hormones. Okay. Limbic system. So limbic system is what? It consists of structures in the thalamus as well as hypothalamus and cerebrum. So limbic system, it has connectivity to thalamus, hypothalamus as well as cerebrum. So which forms a ring around the lower part of the forebrain. So this limbic system is just like a ring around the lower part of the forebrain. So major structures within this system include your olfactory bulb, septal nuclei, hippocampus, amygdala, cingulate gyrus of the cerebral cortex. So what are all the structures which are present in the limbic system? So first is olfactory bulb. Okay, septal nuclei, hippocampus, amygdala and cingulate gyrus of the cerebral cortex. So you can keep in mind with an acronym, that is SOAC HC. Okay, what is S? S is septal nuclei. O is olfactory bulb. A is amygdala. C is cingulate gyrus. Okay, C is cingulate gyrus. Then your H is hippocampus. So where it is present? It is present in the cerebral cortex. So major structures, what are all the major structures? So you can keep this mnemonic SOACHC. S is what's septal nuclei, O is for olfactory bulb, A is for amygdala, C is for cingulate gyrus. So H is for hippocampus. Where it is present? It is present in the cerebral cortex. Okay, so the limbic system, often called emotional brain, because all your emotions or behavior, emotional behavior is controlled by the limbic system. So your it is your behavior related to survival, memory, smell, pleasure of pain, then rage, anger, aggression, affection, sexual desire, all your emotions are controlled by the limbic system. That's why it is called as emotional brain. So limbic system is what you can do. It has a connection to the thalamus, hypothalamus and cerebrum. And what are all the major structures? Olfactory bulb, septal nuclei, hippocampus, amygdala, cingulate gyrus, everything of the cerebral cortex, it has a link. So the limbic system is called as what? It is called as the emotional brain because it controls all the emotions. Cerebrum is the most complex as well as largest part of the brain. So brain means itself, what comes into your mind first is cerebrum. So cerebrum is covered by a thick layer of tightly packed neurons called the cerebral cortex. So cerebrum is made up of what? Is made up of tightly packed neurons called the cerebral cortex. It is divided into two hemispheres. What are those two hemispheres? Right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. So let's see the right hemisphere and left hemisphere and the association cortex in detail. So cerebral cortex is responsible for higher mental functions. What are all the higher mental functions? Your cognition, cognitive things comes under higher mental functions, that is your language, intelligence, information, reasoning, thinking, everything, memory, everything comes under higher mental functions. Again, the cerebral cortex is divided into sensory, motor and association area. Sensory, motor and association area. Sensory means what? It is sensory input from the sense organs. Okay, so sensory area is sensory input. Motor means movement, something related to movement of muscles. Association area is involved with more complex functions such as writing, painting. Okay, so everything, this and all requires this writing, everything requires special skills. Okay. So I told the cerebral cortex is divided into three areas. What are those three areas? Sensory area, motor area and association area. Sensory area deals with sensory input, motor area deals with movement of muscles, association area is involved with what? More complex functions like drawing, writing, everything. Then each cerebral hemisphere is again divided into four lobes. What are those four lobes? Frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe and temporal lobe. So what are the four lobes? Frontal, parietal, occipital and temporal lobes. So let's see the cortical areas and its function. So primary motor cortex. So this primary motor cortex, no, it is responsible for initiation of voluntary movements. Voluntary movements means we can control it. We are doing it voluntarily. Suppose if we want to move our hand, we can do it. It is a voluntary movement. So the primary motor cortex is responsible for this. Then primary somatosensory cortex. Somatosensory. Somato means bodily or physical. Sensory. Sensory means related to sensation. So it is tactile. Tactile means touch information like a pain, pressure. You are giving some pressure. Position, movement, temperature, everything, no, it is received by what? Primary somatosensory cortex. What are they? Tactile information, that is touch information like pain, pressure, position, movement and temperature. Next is motor association cortex, that is coordination of complex movements like your handwriting, everything I have told, no, like that. Then speech center. Speech center, it is called as Broca's area. Broca, B-R-O-C-A, Broca's area. Speech production as well as articulation. Okay, speech production and articulation. Auditory cortex. Auditory cortex means something related to your hearing. Auditory perception and hearing. So whatever you are hearing, you have to perceive it. So that auditory perception and hearing is controlled by auditory cortex. Then auditory association area. Whatever you have heard, no, your brain is processing, no, that is called as complex processing of auditory information. Whatever you have heard, suppose you have heard that you have got secured first in the class. So you will be what? You will be perceiving it and you will be very happy. You will be enjoying it. Suppose in the same way, if you are hearing a sad news, again you are crying for that. Okay, all this is what? Because of the action of the auditory association area. Sensory association area, that is processing of multisensorial information. So various sense organs is giving some information or stimulus, no, everything you are processing by means of sensory association area. Visual association area, whatever you are seeing, how you are perceiving it. Okay, so suppose if color full of lights, so you are perceiving it is a very bright day, like that and all, no, so that is called as, that is controlled by your visual association area. Then Wernicke's area. Wernicke's area means comprehension of spoken language. Okay, Wernicke's area is very, very, very important because whatever the language you are speaking, no, the other person has to perceive it, or you have to understand and you have to perceive it in a right way. So that is controlled by your Wernicke's area. So the different parts of the cerebrum are connected with different mental functions. So the visual area lying in the occipital lobe is connected with the visual organs like eye through the optic nerve. So this visual area is responsible for what? Visual sensation and perception. It is connected to the occipital lobe of the eye by means of what? What nerve is very important here? Your optic nerve. Similarly, your ears are auditory organs is controlled by the auditory nerve, and the auditory area in the temporal lobe is connected to the auditory organs. Auditory area where it is present in the temporal region, which is connected to the ear by means of auditory nerves. So it is the seat of auditory sensation and also involved in memory. So it is the seat of what? Auditory sensation. So it is involved in what? Memory. Next is parietal lobe. The parietal lobe where it lies in the upper rear portion of the brain. Okay, so and is connected with the information about spatial relationship and structure. Suppose if you are thinking the spatial relationship, you can tell whether an object is closer to you or whether an object is farther to you. Everything you can tell by means of this parietal lobe perception. Okay, so it is responsible for what? For spatial relationship and structure, various structures. Frontal lobe contains several parts. Okay, so this frontal lobe is very, very important in maintaining higher mental functions which are going to control your behavior. And if you want to learn any new task or new skills or any new procedures, everything, this frontal lobe should be pakka. Then only you can learn many things, and you can have motivation, you can modify your behavior. So everything is controlled by your frontal lobe of the brain. So what are the lobes of the brain and their functions in a gist? Occipital is for visual processing. Parietal is for movement, orientation, calculation, recognition. Temporal is for sound and speech, that is related to what? Auditory aspects of memory. Then frontal is thinking, conceptualizing and planning. So whatever I have explained previously in a gist has been given in this tabular column. Just at least write this tabular column. If you are writing this schema representation, that is more than enough. So the lobes of the brain, again you can see this frontal lobe. It is for problem solving and planning. Frontal lobe is for problem solving and planning. Next is what? Next is your it is also responsible for your, this frontal lobe is also responsible for your word production. Next, and behavioral control emotion. So this frontal lobe is responsible for word production, problem solving and behavioral control emotion. Next is what? Your parietal lobe. See this occipital lobe is for vision. Okay, then this temporal lobe is for memory and emotions, which is non-visible. Okay, temporal lobe mainly deals with sound perception. Then parietal lobe for word understanding, etc. Okay, next we will see the cortex is again divided into two hemispheres, left hemisphere and right hemisphere. So which is connected? The left hemisphere is connected to the right hemisphere by means of a thick layer of cells. That cells is called as corpus callosum. So the right hemisphere is connected to the left hemisphere in the cerebral cortex by means of corpus callosum. So some specific differences between the two hemispheres are given in the following table. Okay, so right, what are all some of the activities, the specialities? So the right hemisphere is responsible for copying of design. Suppose if you want to copy anything by saying so copying of designs, discrimination of shapes. Because of this one hemisphere, right hemisphere functioning only, we can tell whether it is a circle, whether it is a rectangle, whether it is short, long, everything. Reading, music, holistic, as a whole you can see. Suppose if you see as a part, you can see the picture, as a whole you can see the picture. Holistic processing. Then understanding metaphors and expressing emotions. Left hemisphere specialties are language skills and skilled movements. Then emotions. Right hemisphere is mostly responsible for negative emotions like fear, anger, like that and all. Positive emotions. Left hemisphere is responsible for positive emotions. Neurotransmitters. Here in right hemisphere there are more level of norepinephrine. That is, the other name for norepinephrine is noradrenaline. In left hemisphere, dopamine is very higher, okay, higher levels of dopamine. Gray matter and white matter ratio: more white matter on right hemisphere, more gray matter on left hemisphere. On left hemisphere only gray matter is more, whereas in right hemisphere white matter is more. What shared sensation on both sides of the face, sound perceived by both ears, pain, hunger, position, everything you have both in right hemisphere and left hemisphere. Both are sharing that thing commonly. Both hemispheres are responsible for sensation on both sides of the face, sound perceived by both the ears, pain, hunger, vision, everything, position, everything, or balance, everything. So left brain is for logic analysis, linear mathematics, language, facts, thinking in words of songs, computation. Right brain, more than that, your creativity, your imagination, intuition, that is sudden thought, that is called as intuition, holistic thinking, arts, motor skills, rhythm, non-verbal feelings, visualization, song, tune of songs, daydreaming, everything in right brain function. Next, moving on to association cortex. Association cortex deals with more complex subjects like memory, emotions, reasoning, higher mental functions, will, judgment, personality traits, and intelligence. So all these memory, emotions, reasoning, will, judgment, personality traits, and intelligence are called as cognitive functions, which is responsible for these things. Yes, association cortex. So again, in association cortex, you have somatosensory association cortex, visual association cortex, and auditory association cortex. What is this somatosensory association cortex? It permits the exact shape, texture, okay, soft, hard texture like that of an object without looking at it. Okay, even if you are closing the eyes also, suppose a sponge is given, you can feel the texture. You can tell it by closing the eyes also, you can tell it is very soft, okay, the shape is a rectangle or shape is a square like that and all. Then visual association areas. So it relates present to past visual experiences with resolution and evaluation of what is seen. Suppose you have seen a person long back ago in a place, Delhi. Okay, so after that you are seeing the same person also. By means of that visual memory, you are correlating with, oh, 2 years back I have seen you in Delhi, okay, in this place like that. So that is visual association area. Then auditory association area, it determines if a sound is a speech, music, or noise. Auditory association, suppose if a song has been sung by SPB like that, okay, so you can recognize by hearing the voice itself, you can tell that is SP Balasubramaniam's voice like that and all, okay. That is auditory association areas. So localization of mental functions in the brain. So in the brain you have motor, auditory, speech production, behavior, emotions, motivation, planning, complex movements, and thinking in the frontal lobe. Okay, somatosensory, spatial awareness, language, visual processing of words, naming of objects, vision, which part of the brain is responsible for so and so activities. Everything we have dealt. This is just in a pictorial representation. That's it. So next is midbrain. So midbrain is concerned with the relaying of messages, particularly those to hearing and sight to higher brain center. So midbrain is just, it is acting as a relay. So it is connecting to the higher brain centers. So one of its important structure is reticular activating system, RAS. So the reticular activating system. So with the help of this structure, an individual is able to decide which impulses should be registered consciously and which should be rejected. We are seeing so many things in our day-to-day life. Whether we are keeping everything in our mind or memory, no. Whatever the things needed, that is registered in our mind. Rest all it is thrown into the dustbin like that, okay. So this function is performed by your midbrain reticular activating system, which is RAS. Next is hindbrain. Your hindbrain is composed of 3 structures. What are those 3 structures? Medulla, pons, and cerebellum. So medulla is the breathing center. So it controls digestion, respiration, circulation. Medulla controls what? It is the respiratory center, okay. It controls what? Medulla oblongata, digestion, respiration, and circulation. Next is pons. The pons assist in breathing, transmitting impulses from the cerebellum to the the pons is between cerebellum and cerebrum. So this pons is transmitting the impulses from the cerebellum to the higher centers of the brain, or from higher centers of the brain to the cerebellum. So cerebellum is responsible for your body balance and the coordination of various body movements like dancing, typing, playing, running, etc. Okay, the cerebellum is responsible for body balance functions like dancing, typing, playing, running, all activities like that. So the major structures in the brain: cerebral cortex, corpus callosum, thalamus, cerebrum, pons, reticular activating system, medulla, hypothalamus, pituitary, and your spinal cord. So these are the major structures in the brain what we have discussed till now. Okay, so in a just they have given in this diagrammatic representation. Spinal cord. So spinal cord is very important. Okay, it is continuing from the lower part of the brain. It is a rope like structure made up of long round nerve fibers. So it is surrounded by so much of nerve fibers, which is very important. So it is responsible for reflex actions. Suppose if you are keeping your hand on fire, immediately your spinal cord will react to it. There is no time for the impulses to go to the brain. So some activities are controlled by your spinal cord itself, because previous memory. Okay, if it is hot means it will hurt your body. So immediately within a fraction of a second you will take away from the hot object. So this is not controlled by your brain. Your spinal cord itself immediately it will be taking it off. So this action is called as what? Reflex action. Next, moving on to peripheral nervous system. So the nervous tissue lying outside the bony case, that is bony case of the head, that is brain and spinal cord. Apart from the brain and spinal cord, whatever the peripheral nerves you are having, that comes under peripheral nervous system, which is also as much importance, because once the central nervous system has carried on the impulses, that has to be taken to the muscles or whatever it may be by means of peripheral nervous system. Again, the peripheral nervous system is divided into autonomic nervous system and somatic nervous system. As I have told, somatic nervous system is under voluntary control, autonomic nervous system is under involuntary control. Again, autonomic nervous system is combined into sympathetic and parasympathetic. This all we have discussed. So in somatic you have sensory and motor part. Sensory receives sensory input and motor is what muscle output, like that. Okay, so the autonomic system again is only motor system. In somatic system you have both sensory and motor system, whereas autonomic only motor system, which is again divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic system is connected to the spinal cord. Okay, so it will be carrying messages to various muscles, glands. Okay, in stressful situation like fight or flight responses. So in fight or flight responses, so your epinephrine, norepinephrine, everything will be secreted. Okay, the parasympathetic nervous system is connected to the brain and to the lower portion of the spinal cord. So the sympathetic nervous system is connected to the spinal cord, whereas the parasympathetic nervous system is connected to the brain and to the lower portion of the spinal cord. Next, parasympathetic nervous system, that is emergency response, is sympathetic. Parasympathetic is what? Calm and relaxed. Okay, after an emergency situation you are becoming calm and relaxed. No, so here the body will be coming back to its original normal functioning. So the messages conveyed by the nerve fibers of the system directs the organs to do just the opposite of what has been done by the sympathetic nervous system. Just the opposite to the sympathetic. For example, if the sympathetic nervous system, the heartbeat has been raised, means parasympathetic nervous system what will do? It will reduce the heartbeat, like that. If sympathetic nervous system increases the respiratory rate, parasympathetic nervous system just does opposite to it, that is it decreases the respiratory rate. So it directs the body organs to return to the normal state after an emergency. After an emergency has been subsided, our body should come back to normal. Otherwise it will be what? Always the body cannot be in an emergency situation. So the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions of the autonomic nervous system, they are acting very closely. Okay, if sympathetic is activated, means immediately the parasympathetic should come to calm down. Suppose we are also getting angry, means someone should there to come and tell that it is wrong, or someone should be there to calm ourselves, to control ourselves, like that and all. Suppose suddenly an emotional outburst, again someone should pacify us, then only we will be calming, or we will be cooling. So similarly here parasympathetic nervous system, if it shoots up, then again in parallel to it the sympathetic nervous system will be coming and it will be controlling the parasympathetic nervous system activities in order to maintain the balance, that is equilibrium of the bodily function. Next is nature of behavior of an organisms, that is integrated responses. See, the various activities of nervous system, they have to act in coordination. Okay, the sensory function, the integrative functions, motor functions, everything. Okay, sensory, motor, integrative or association, all these things should be acting in coordination, hand in hand. So millions of sensory receptors detect changes called stimuli, which occur inside and outside the body. Temperature, light, sound, external environment. According to that, the internal environment will also react to it. Based on the external environment, lighting, temperature, sound, the internal environment also will be reacting to it. So in internal environment also you have blood pressure, you have pH, you have oxygen concentration, carbon dioxide concentration, various electrolyte levels, everything. The internal environment is different from that of external environment, and both are interdependent. If external environment has an influence on internal environment, similarly vice versa, internal environment has an effect on external environment. So sensory input is converted into electrical signals and nerve impulses. These sensory impulses are perceived by the brain, so they are also stored in our memory also for future impulses to act. Okay, so already some past memories also we are relating it, and we are acting accordingly, no? So this process is called as what? Integration. So based on the sensory input and integration, our body will be conveying the messages to the muscles, and the muscles will be acting accordingly, or glands, our endocrine glands will be secreting hormones like that and all. For example, suddenly a bus is approaching us. If we are going to stand on the road, definitely we are going to die. So immediately our body is reacting, our brain is reacting by seeing the bus, by hearing the sound. We know that we are in an emergency. So what immediately the signals, everything are integrated into the brain and spinal cord, and immediately we are moving away from the bus. So the muscles, as well as we are thinking it as an emergency, so our glands, everything has been secreted, so we are acting very fastly to move out of that situation. So in this way your muscles and glands are affecting, which is called as effectors, which I have discussed in my previous video also. If you have not watched that video, I will be giving the link in description box, or you can watch our channel playlist psychology. Okay. So the cerebral cortex has primary areas, incoming sensory stimuli, then motor responses, everything. Okay, the connecting nerve fibers are called as what? Associative fibers, that is the sensory stimuli, motor stimuli, everything are connected. No, each nerve fiber is connected to one another. That is called as associate fibers. Okay, so the associate fibers, they are responsible for your higher mental functions. What I have told, memory, reasoning, intelligence, judgment, everything comes under your higher mental functions and coordination. Again, the autonomic nervous system is autonomous and it will be working independently, okay, of voluntary control. Okay, autonomic nervous system is what? Involuntary control. Okay, your respiration and all, no, you cannot control it. Circulation, digestion, all your internal functions are controlled by your autonomic nervous system. Okay. So illness is going to affect your nervous system, either directly or indirectly. It is going to affect your nervous system, your perception, everything. So some specific diseases will be totally affecting your nervous system, leading to permanent damage of the nervous system, or some diseases will be leading to temporary damage of the nervous system. So importance of knowledge of the nervous system and glands to a nurse. It's very responsible for a nurse to understand the nervous system, how it is related to behavior, because much of your behavior is mostly concerned with the top, your nervous system and your endocrine gland functioning. Okay, so it helps the nurse to understand how glandular secretions are going to affect your personality, and it also helps the nurse to understand the various diseases of nervous system and glands and their effect on human behavior. Hope this video has given a detailed explanation about your brain and nervous system mainly. If you still have any doubts, feel free to post your doubts in comment section. If you like my video, don't forget to press the like button. Please subscribe and share, okay, to Science Easy Tech channel. Thank you friends, keep supporting to Science Easy Tech channel. My previous videos link I have given in description box, suggested end cards and iCards. Thank you friends.